Hey y'all, how's it going? uh, Seems like everyone's already having an amazing time. I'm glad you are. For those of you who are just joining us, feel free to find a seat wherever you feel comfortable. Good evening. I'd like to thank all of you for joining us here to honor this year's Outlaw Alumna of the Year awardee, Julie Fink. Woo! Yeah. We are incredibly excited to be back in person today in the beautiful, comfortable, warm Lipton Hall here. I'm very happy to see many familiar faces and also excited to see many faces of new folks that I haven't had the opportunity to meet yet. On behalf of Outlaw, I would like to offer all of you a very warm welcome, students, alumni, faculty, staff, and prospective students as well. My name is Josh Stallings. Talia White and I are the co-chairs of Outlaw for this year. I think I can speak for both of us when I say that it is an incredible joy, honor, and privilege to serve this community that I think has become a home for both of us here at NYU. Outlaw is one of the oldest affinity groups here at the law school. We strive to be a persistent advocate and organizer for the LGBTQ community, both on campus and beyond. As many of you may know, our programming includes education, service, activism, fostering community, and building coalitions with many other organizations here at the law school. In the past year, we have seen a lot of growth and really exciting developments that I think reflect the supportive and generative relationship that we have with the law school in general. Earlier this year, as some of you may have seen, the law school unveiled several new gender-neutral bathrooms across campus at the beginning of the term. We awarded our first annual Trans Rights and Representation Scholarship, which is a $10,000 tuition award that Outlaw sponsors, and it recognizes the achievements of a student who is committed to furthering the rights and representation of trans people of color in the legal profession. But tonight is a very special moment for us to celebrate the accomplishments of all of our inspiring alumni, and specifically to recognize the incredible work that Julie Fink has done in advocating for LGBTQ people and other marginalized communities. So to help me get things started and to share some inspiring and entertaining words, as he always does, please join me in welcoming Dean of NYU Law School, Troy McKenzie.
Thank you. I'll try to inspire and entertain, but it's tough to pull that off. So thank you all for joining this evening. I want to welcome everyone. This is one of those events that I think everyone looks forward to, the annual Outlaw Alumni Reception. And I want to start actually with a little bit of history, because NYU has had an affinity group for the LGBTQ community for a very long time. When I was in law school, the name was different. It wasn't called Outlaw yet. But the history at NYU goes back even further, going all the way back to the 1970s, when NYU was the first law school that implemented policies requiring employers who wanted to interview on campus to promise that they would not discriminate. And that was something that was considered really unusual at the time. And when I joined the faculty in 2007, the law school was in the middle of litigation with the federal government over the Solomon Amendment, which was an amendment that threatened to pull federal funding for universities if any component of the university refused to allow military recruiters on campus on the same terms as other employers. And Ricky Revesz was dean at the time, and Ricky explained to the faculty that we were going to join a coalition challenging this amendment under this statute under the First Amendment. And initially it was basically just NYU. A couple other schools joined, but it took a tremendous amount of courage for the law school to do that. But I remember Ricky saying at the time, this is a reflection of the kind of place NYU is and the value that we put on diversity, on openness, on inclusion. So it's with that history in mind that I say hello and welcome to everyone. I want to just speak a brief word to those who are prospective students who are here this evening. I know that we have some prospective students, including some newly admitted students who are attending today. I want to offer you a heartfelt welcome. Please come and chat if you'd like to, and let me twist your arm and tell you why the only law school you want to come to is NYU School of Law. There's no substitute, just so that you know. And I think you will see in this room the kind of community that NYU draws together. My main task is to thank and congratulate Outlaw Alumna of the Year and the guest of honor this evening, Julie Fink, class of 2005 at NYU and partner at Kaplan, Hecker, and Fink. Now, our co-chair, Talia White, will introduce Julie in a moment, but I just want to speak a brief word about how proud we are of Julie for all of her leadership, for her incredible accomplishments as a lawyer and as someone who has been a stalwart defender of the LGBTQ community. It really is fitting to honor her this evening. And I will also say, as someone who, in my sideline, studies law firms and law practice, it is really impressive for someone who is really still at an early stage of a career. Am I good? Good. Okay, yeah. To have taken on such an important role in the profession. This is a wonderful firm. As some of you may know, my predecessor, Trevor Morrison, has affiliated with the firm, and that tells you something about the quality of the firm and the confidence that those of us who think highly of the firm have in it. One final thing I just wanted to say before I welcome Talia up to the microphone. When you think about your role as a law student, for those of you who are here on campus, it's always important to look ahead of you and look behind you. Think about the pioneers who graduated years ahead of you and have made their way in the profession and have contributed as lawyers to the profession, but have also contributed to everyone in society. And I would also ask you to look around at your colleagues and look behind you at those who are coming after you. It's an obligation and a joy to help out those who are coming along behind you. Give them a little bit of advice, a little pat on the shoulder, or a little pat on the back, a shoulder to cry on when appropriate, and a word of encouragement when they need it. I think that also should be a mark of the NYU community. So I'm grateful to our talented and enthusiastic community, students, alumni, and others who are promoting constructive and thoughtful dialogue around LGBTQ issues, and I'm honored to celebrate everyone tonight. I will now turn it over to Talia.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Talia White, and I'd like to echo Josh's and Dean McKenzie's statements. Thank you so much for being here, and we welcome you. I have the huge honor of introducing our awardee, Julie Fink. After graduating from NYU, magna cum laude in 2005, as a Florence Allen Scholar and a member of the Order of the Coif, Julie went on to clerk for the Honorable Judge Eric N. Vitaliano of the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of New York. She is a former senior corporate counsel at Pfizer, and she is now the managing partner at Kaplan, Hecker, and Fink, and is on the board of directors of the Gay Men's Health Crisis. She is one of the youngest managing partners at a law firm, and she has been called revolutionary due to her approach to firm operations, her commitment to diversity and inclusion, and her contributions to the firm's litigation practice. Julie's accomplishments are numerous. She was named Managing Partner of the Year at Corporate Counsel's 2019 Women, Influence, and Power in Law Awards. She has also been honored as a notable LGBTQ leader and executive, notable woman in law, and 40 Under 40 Rising Business Star by Crain's New York, a leading lawyer in America by Law Dragon 500, and a 40 and under Hot List member and future star by Benchmark Litigation. Julie's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion in the law has also been recognized. She was named a finalist for Crain's New York's 2021 Excellence in Diversity and Inclusion Champions of Change Award, and a Kaplan Hecker and Fink is likewise a current finalist for the National Law Journal's Diversity Initiative Award at the publication's upcoming Elite Trial Lawyers event. Julie's practice has included product liability and mass tort, employment class action, regulatory, securities fraud, mergers and acquisitions, consumer fraud, and complex commercial and antitrust litigation. She also has an active pro bono and public interest practice. She represented plaintiffs in a groundbreaking lawsuit against white supremacists and neo-Nazis, bringing claims under the Ku Klux Klan Act and the Civil Rights Act based on their roles in organizing the racial and religious-based violence in Charlottesville during the summer of 2017. Julie also represented Amber Heard in a defamation lawsuit filed against her by her ex-husband, Johnny Depp. In 2018, she successfully represented Melanie Kohler, who was sued for defamation by a Hollywood director after sharing her Me Too experience on Facebook. At Paul Weiss, Julie was a key member of the team representing Edith Windsor in her historic challenge to the Defense of Marriage Act, where the Supreme Court ruled that DOMA is unconstitutional. She also represented thousands of individuals in an action brought against the governor of the state of New York and other New York officials challenging the state's practice of segregating individuals with mental illness in institutional adult homes. After more than a decade of litigation, Julie helped negotiate a landmark settlement ending the state's discriminatory practices. Julie continued her work at Pfizer, where she served as the global pro bono lead, significantly expanding the company's legal pro bono programs throughout the world. She also served as a member of Pfizer's global LGBT colleague council. Julie is a frequent speaker on civil rights issues and pro bono work, and she has won awards for her public interest advocacy, including Help USA's Hero Award, the Legal Aid Society's Pro Bono Publico Award, and Immigration Equality's Safe Haven Award for Excellence in Pro Bono Representation. Julie has co-authored numerous articles and amicus briefs on reproductive rights and LGBTQ+ rights issues, and serves on the board of New York Lawyers for the Public Interest and Makers Ad. Please join me in congratulating Julie Fink, recipient of the 2023 Outlaw Alumni of the Year Award.
I'm deeply uncomfortable, but thank you guys. So thank you so much, Talia and Josh, for thinking of me, and Dean McKenzie for being here. Thank you also to Kelly Spencer, who I hope is still in the room, who organized this and told me where to go and what to do, and I hope you continue to do that for me, because you've been fantastic. This recognition is incredibly kind and meaningful, even though, candidly, it feels very undeserved. Kelly has a strict schedule here. She allotted me 19 minutes to speak, and asked that I share a little bit about my journey and try to be inspirational. I assure you, I do not have 19 minutes of inspiration to share. And if I go on, you are free to leave and enjoy the bar. In thinking about what to say, I started thinking about the people who have inspired me. They're the lawyers that I've gotten to work with, like Robbie Kaplan, who are brilliant and see a problem in the world and immediately feel drawn to fix it. I think of the clients like Edie, who had the tremendous bravery to take on the federal government at a very late stage in her life, which was a very terrifying thing for her to do, to secure rights for the rest of us. I think about people, sorry, I'll get choked up for 1 second, like my wife, who work every day at nonprofits providing support to families and people in need. I am not any of these people that I've described. And the people here who've known me and worked with me for a long time will attest to that. I am most likely to be the person who's with the people I've described saying something like, should we? I don't know. And for what it's worth, to those of you who are current students or prospective students, I was not an outstanding law student during my time here. I spent most of my time in class trying to figure out how to use AOL Instant Messenger to download music from my friends' computers, and I realized that most of you have no idea what that means or why I'd have to do that, but the old people do. There are not many professors at NYU who will remember me for my contributions in class. I'm sure many of the classmates that I had will say, who? I quit my journal because I didn't think it was fun. I had to steal notes from the very kind group of people who are sitting there to prepare for my finals, and I think many, if not all of them, were surprised to find that I managed to take all the courses I needed to have credits to graduate. If my mother was here, she'd express her surprise about how someone who can't make her bed can be Outlaws Alumna of the Year. I promise you that's exactly what she'd say. And frankly, this award is particularly surprising to me because I was not a member of Outlaw when I was at law school. In fact, I was not out when I was in law school. And it's not just that I wasn't out when I was in law school, but I wasn't really in the closet either. I was at a point in my life where I really couldn't even sort of let myself think about being gay. It was a time before marriage was legal in any state, when Bowers was still good law, when we started law school, if you want to feel very old. And when less than 0.8% of partners at law firms were identified as LGBTQ. And I just couldn't let myself think about it. And for those of you who are looking at me now and asking the very natural question, did you dress like that at the time? The answer is, I did. It does seem like someone should have said something to me. When I was much older, someone who's sitting right there eventually did say something to me. And so my wife and I thank her for that. But that is more of a story for a different meeting, or maybe at the bar afterwards. And so I think for myself, the way in which I can be inspiring to those of you in this room who are in law school or considering it is to assure you that if I am able to be here receiving this tremendous honor, then literally anybody can. When I was in law school, notwithstanding how little I gave to the NYU community, I have to say that it gave me so much. It really instilled in me this sense, and I hope it is, and I'm sure it is for all of you, that as lawyers, you really have a tremendous power to help people, and that you can do that really regardless of where your career takes you. You don't have to choose public interest or something else. You can make it a part of your life however you decide to shape your career. And for me, while I made a lot of the sort of ordinary choices a lot of people make, going to a large law firm, then going to a large company, what has definitely been true about me and my career is that I've been really fortunate and I've had an extraordinary privilege to work with some of the best lawyers in the country and with some of the most incredible clients I could have imagined, and on some of the issues that are most important to me. And that's been particularly true at Kaplan Hecker and Fink, a firm, as Talia mentioned, I co-founded with Robbie Kaplan in 2017, and where I've been the managing partner. I wish I was still under 40, but we'll just let everyone believe it. Over the past 5 years, the firm has grown to over 60 lawyers and 100 people. And because of the outstanding people that we have, we represent now some of the biggest companies in the country. We tackle pretty much every significant issue, from Charlottesville to some of the early Me Too cases, representing people who came forward about Justice Kavanaugh, about Eric Schneiderman, about Jeffrey Epstein. The firm has 3 cases against Donald Trump, including one for the very remarkable E. Jean Carroll. We represented Pennsylvania and Wisconsin in their election protection work. We represented Kentucky. Our partner's a Kentucky colonel now, which is a thing that can happen to like a Jewish guy in DC who represents Kentucky in protecting their COVID initiatives. We've sued the NYPD over injustice at protests about George Floyd's murder. We've ensured that an LGBT pride parade could happen in Mississippi. We've helped the U.S. Women's National Team when they were fighting for pay equity, and we represented women who came forward about the National Women's Soccer League and completely reshaped that league and the sport for women. We've looked at gender equity in the NCAA championships. That's those guys. We've represented dozens of CJA clients, worked on important civil justice reform, recently had, in one of the most important cases I think we've had, the charges dropped against our client, Tracy McCarter, who is the victim of domestic violence. And today I will say my favorite client is a 11-year-old transgender child fighting for her right to go to camp. I think this is possible because of the people that we have, and I think the reason that we have the people that we have is because we put our values first. Equity inclusion is the heart of what we do, whether it's our work outside the firm or inside the firm, and it's led to us getting the American Lawyer. We ultimately won that award. I need to update my bio. But we won the American Lawyer Best Diversity Initiative Award, which for a firm at the time that was 4 years old was such a great source of pride for us. We've been the Boutique Firm of the Year 3 years in a row. Our lawyers in our departments are ranked in chambers, something else that none of you guys know about, but it's very impressive, I promise you. And of our 13 partners, the majority are women and the majority are LGBT. And so that you have the context for how far we've come as a country, the national average for women partners is 27%, and for LGBT partners, it's still 2%. And so it's the diversity, I think, of our firm that means the world to us, and 80% of our firm identifies as diverse in some way. And so I'm happy to share a little bit about how I got there and how I got to the firm and how I think the firm has done this, including attracting people like Dean Morrison. But I'll give you the headlines for those of you who are sick of listening to me, which is that my experience is that you just let people know what you want to do, say yes when you get the right opportunities, and be prepared to take chances. And I'll say this for the law students and prospective law students here, that, I think one of the best gifts going to a place like NYU can give you, the experience and the education you'll get here, is the freedom to take chances. And it's very easy in the law to follow a path and feel like you can't veer off of it, that success is very linear. But having the experience you'll have here, having the networks you'll build here, gives you the chance to do something new. That has always turned out to be the best choices I've made. So I'm gonna spend my notes kind of teeter off after this, so we'll see how long. But a few minutes to say, I chose to go to Paul Weiss when I was here because I heard Maria Vullo, who is a former NYU alum also, my friend is smiling at me because she remembers, speak at a panel here. And she was a young female partner at Paul Weiss at the time. She had done these two remarkable things that I knew about. She had represented women who were raped by soldiers during the Bosnian War and brought a lawsuit here in the US, and she had represented Planned Parenthood and abortion providers in a case where she'd secured a $100 million verdict against people who were trying to cause them harm. And I didn't know anything about how to pick a law firm, but I thought I would like to be like her or around her, so I'll go there. And when I came to Paul Weiss, I said to someone, I'd like to work with Maria. And I took on some extra work to work on a first project with her, and then she asked me to join the Planned Parenthood case. And so sort of my first dream in law school happened right away, and I thought, well, this is it. I got to do it, I'm done now. And then, just a timeline-wise, then I became gay. so you have a sense of it. And when I was at my clerkship, and when I came back to my clerkship, there was a question like, "Are you openly gay?" And I was like, "I don't know." But when I came back, I had said like I would love to work on LGBT rights work. And when Edie Windsor called the firm, someone said, "Robbie, you should meet Julie." And Robbie and I had lunch, and she asked me if I wanted to work on the Windsor case, and I said yes. And then I met Edie and had just like the most amazing professional experience I could have dreamed of over the next 4 years. Robbie had this tendency to eat, because there was so much happening in New York at the time, we were both like litigating the Windsor case and then simultaneously like fighting for marriage equality in New York around that time. And so Robbie would frequently email the whole firm, like the whole firm LGBT group, and then copy me until I was finally like, it seems like we could be out at this point. So here I am. And that was just phenomenal for me. And I thought like, this is it. Like, and I thought it would be the most significant professional experience I'd ever had. And it was like transformative to see the work that we could do. We didn't go into it thinking, or I didn't, other people might say differently, but like I didn't go into it thinking we were gonna end up at the Supreme Court. I thought like we would represent Edie and see what happened. And the change was remarkable from the time we brought the case, when I think there were like 5 states where you can get married, to the time it was decided. And then the year after, there's 35 states you could get married. And then the year after that was Obergefell. And when I left Paul Weiss, I thought like that part of my career was over, like that part of my advocacy, and in particular the LGBT advocacy that I'd been doing, and some of the other work I had done there. I just thought that I couldn't do that from a place of being in-house, and I was wrong about that. I was able to lead the pro bono efforts at Pfizer and be on the global Pfizer college, very corporate-y, both Pfizer LGBT corporate council group. And I was asked to join the GMHC board, and I said yes. And I found ways of continuing the important work to do during that time. And then, you know, my note here just says, agreed to start firm, and then it ends, so. And then Robbie said, like, let's start a law firm. And I will say, because I think I've given you guys a good sense of who I am, I'm not like a particularly brave person. I was like, I just don't know that we should start a law firm. Like, what do I do? What will we do? How will we make money? You want to sue Donald Trump? Like, that seems expensive and time consuming, and we need people and a place. But I will have to say, like, the best advice I got from people was that the biggest regret would be to say no to something like that. And so I said, like, okay. And by far, with one exception, it's the best decision I've ever made. And for those of you who don't know a lot about law firms, I am not your usual managing partner, not just because I'm so young and charming, but because like most law firms, like your managing partner, the chairman, the person who runs the firm, is like the most successful person at the firm. I am not the most successful person at our firm. I think what makes us different is that, for me, what's made it so rewarding is that as the managing partner, I really work for the firm. And I think the number one part of my job in working for the firm, in addition to like making sure we have enough toilet paper for everybody, is sort of upholding the values that we started with. And our values are to be, you know, excellent advocates for our clients, to do important, progressive public interest work that might otherwise not be done, and to be an equitable place. And that's like the best job I think anyone can ask for. And I'm incredibly grateful that I still have it. And I'm incredibly grateful for you guys for this like ridiculous recognition. And I'm looking forward to being a more active member of Outlaw. So, thank you.
Julie, thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us. As I just told you, you're way more inspiring than you give yourself credit for. I think, and thank you for sharing your experience as a gay person. I think it reminds me that there are just so many beautiful, amazing ways to be an LGBTQ person, and I hope that's something that we can all take with us as we leave today. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, clap for gay people. Thank you. But I will not keep you too much longer. I'd like to invite everyone to stick around, enjoy refreshments, and enjoy the company here. I think one of the strengths of our outlaw community and the LGBTQ community generally is that we simultaneously have so much diversity in our spaces, and yet we share so many common experiences and interests. So in the spirit of building that community, I do hope to see many of you at future Outlaw, LAA, and LACA events in the future. And I'd certainly like to thank all of the staff here for making this evening possible, and Kelly Spencer again for all of her incredible work. There she is, still working, still getting things set up. And another thank you again to Julie Fink for sharing her evening with us, and to all of you for spending your time with us as well. So be well and enjoy the rest of your night.